listeners, and welcome back to another episode of the Skylight Books podcast series. You're in for another episode of Better Than the Movie, in which some booksellers and their talented guests get together and discuss a recent movie adaptation or a classic, but this time it's super recent. We literally just finished the book and read and watched the movie like last night at the opening night. We're talking Killers of the Flower Moon. I'm your co-host, Justin Remer.
I'm Tyler Austin.
I'm Allan Traylor.
And our guest is a fellow bookseller, an artist,
Wow.
a confidant, a friend, an artist.
Confidant. Wow.
And raconteur is literally the word I was looking for. I was like, an artist and raconteur, but also a confidant and a friend.
Yeah.
David Kimbel.
It's like
Hello.
You're a pal and a
He's
confidant.
a raconteur and a confidant.
Woo! Yeah, that's all staying in too.
Yes, it is.
So, we're talking about the nonfiction book Killers of the Flower Moon by David Grann and the new motion picture directed by Martin Scorsese, screenplay by Eric Roth and Martin Scorsese, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Lily Gladstone, Robert De Niro, and 700,000 character actors and musicians.
Most of them musicians.
Right.
Alt country, come on down.
Including Jack White.
We got roles for you. Sturgill Simpson, Jason Isbell. 400 Unit was in there somewhere, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I couldn't find him. But.
Yeah, Pete Yorn as A.C. Kirby. Anyhow,
Yeah, where the fuck was Tom Waits?
I know.
well, he's a Coppola guy.
Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think they said that's a face too craggly for this movie.
It'll be
It's
distracting.
a crag too far.
Yeah. He's not an old timey prospector like in Buster Scruggs. So
Mr. Pocket. I love that short, dude. Anyways.
Yeah. So because we're exploring, it's the first time exploring like a nonfiction book adapted into a fiction movie. I thought maybe we could chat a little bit about some thoughts we have on those kind of adaptations. Maybe some true crime stuff we like. Anybody got anything they'd like to offer in this regard?
Well, I don't think you have to go look far in Martin Scorsese's career to find some pretty great adaptations of nonfiction crime work.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Such as Goodfellas and Casino, Wolf
yeah.
of Wall Street. These are all great examples of an adaptation and that he put his personal spin on. And I think it also sort of helps that this movie is in some way, conversation with those films and sort of how they operate. So, yeah.
I would agree. Yeah. The way he approaches the figures at the center of the story, and also in the case of this one, who he chooses to put at the center of the story.
Yeah.
Have either of you, or I guess any of us, have you read Wise Guy or Casino or?
No. I've read Wise Guy and I bought Casino, but I will read it eventually. But Wise Guy's really good.
I remember when it was brand new, I started Casino, but I didn't get through it because I think it was much more informational than I was expecting. Although I like one of the first anecdotes in Casino I remember is about the blueberry muffins, which like comes up like 2 hours into the movie. But I was like, oh, the blueberry muffins! I read that
It
part.
paid off.
They did it. Too many muffins or too many blueberries in the muffins.
Yeah.
And then this one's got none.
Yeah, we got to get consistency. The amount of blueberries in these muffins.
I mean, that's really maybe his greatest skill as a director on some level is taking something as densely packed as like what it is to run a casino and how the mob made money doing it and making it this sort of beautiful, easy to understand like info dump that's like also so visually interesting that you're just like, do another hour of it. I want to see money shooting down a tray and then get sent all the way to Kansas City forever. And he's like incredible at that. I mean, that's sort of his. It's probably, again, I'd say one of his greatest. Or even in Goodfellas, obviously, like the use of voiceover and the like interesting way that he does that is also such a way to just give us so much information so quickly. And I know he's like was obviously. I think that's the thing he's talked about being like worried about in the past and being like, no one's going to want to stay with this. Yeah. And then he's like, so I'm going to shoot it like it's an MGM musical, and it works, and it's incredible, and he's brilliant. So
yeah. What about either of you folks?
Yeah, I'd say I'm pretty much allergic to nonfiction in general. Don't really enjoy it. I can only think of one nonfiction book that I read, which I really enjoyed, called The Wicked River, which is all about the Mississippi, like in the early to mid 1800s. And I love that so much that I wrote like a whole script about like these con artists going down a river, and I was like infatuated by it. But like that's the only book that was nonfiction that I enjoyed.
Just wait till you become a father. And then they drop off a pallet of them right on your front door.
That and WW2 books.
Yeah.
I mean
golfing, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
To be fair, I think you just get older, because I'm not a father, but like when I watched that Robert Gottlieb documentary, I was like, yeah, let's read I'm going to start The Power Broker right now. Let's plunge through
Also,
this.
I am older than you. How dare you, Tyler?
I know. And I don't have children either, but this is what I like. I have a dog at home, and the day that happened, I was currently
watching on stream.
On my stream, he's not moving. He's fine. Yeah, he's fine.
He's not moving in a good way. In a good way.
He's asleep. He's good.
Yeah.
No, he's fine. Yeah, and the day we got him, I also got Stephen Ambrose's Band of Brothers, and it just magically appeared in my hands, and I was like, this is great. I love it. Let me read all of it.
I would say the closest I get to nonfiction is just going down the YouTube hole when I find like a subject fascinating or a movie, and I'm like, I kind of want to know a little bit more. I would never think to grab a book compiled about it.
Yeah. But you'll watch documentary films, or?
Oh, yeah, I'll watch documentary films for sure.
Okay. David. Our guest.
David,
our confidant friend.
The bona fide confidant.
Yeah. I got 3 things officially to my name, which is great. So, there's only one nonfiction novel that I really enjoyed, also true crime. Have you seen the documentary Dear Zachary before?
Oh, God.
Have you heard of
Devastating.
that? Yeah. Devastating. Are we allowed to swear on this podcast?
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, baby.
Hell yes. That was based on a book called Dance with the Devil. And it's essentially just about this guy. I think his name is Andrew Bagby. And it was this doctor that had like this love affair with like this older woman. She was like in her like 50s or something like that. And she was psychotic, and she ended up murdering him, but she ended up kind of moving to Canada. And basically it's just about how horrible the criminal justice system is, because it took years for her to finally get so that
usually the justice system is pretty great.
Yeah. I think usually it's like 100 for 100.
I'm shocked in my core to hear
I especially think the film we're talking about today really talks about how justice is great.
On every level, from your local sheriff to the Supreme Court, just killing it.
There's a fucking Undertaker.
Yeah, the Undertaker.
I mean, and in a way too, it reminds me, because I guess my pick, just because it's like something I read or I watched recently, is Zodiac, David Fincher's film of Zodiac, which I think because of the flavor of the book of Killers of the Flower Moon, I was in a very crime investigation headspace. I was also I finished watching the Hannibal series, so I was also.
You also watched all the NCIS TV shows, right?
New Orleans, L.A.,
Yeah,
Hawaii.
Yeah, probably.
No,
all the states are in there.
No, I don't want any computers. I either want someone to put themselves in the mind of a killer through supernatural magic, whatever, or just empathy, like in Hannibal, or I want them to have to follow so many notes of evidence that they will never be satisfied and can never find the answer to their terrifying goal.
Much like this book.
Yeah. But Zodiac, like Killers of the Flower Moon, has like so many great character actors. So it's just like, it's like yummy 3 hours of yummy
true crime in my tummy.
Dudes being dudes, and then like the lady just gets to be like, "Oh, you're obsessed. I'm gonna take the children."
Yeah. Always a great choice for a woman in that situation. I just always remember Robert Downey Jr.'s socks in that movie, because there's that scene where he like puts his feet up on the desk and he's got like bright red socks on, and I was just like, I don't know why, but I love that detail so much. Anyways, in a movie that's all details, I was just like, this is a particularly great choice. He's like a showy character, I feel like, so it just like fits so.
Well,
so
that's one of the things too. Like rewatching it, and I think it's something that applies to our main supporting character in Killers of the Flower Moon, is like there's not actually that much Robert Downey Jr. in Zodiac, but it's so minutely realized that everything sticks, and you just think of him as like the character from that movie in a way.
That is kind of how I remember it. Yeah.
Yeah, but like he disappears for a long time just to show back up, like breathing oxygen. He's like, yeah, I have emphysema or something, and then he's gone.
Yeah.
I guess, smoking and drinking and doing whatever he did was bad for that person. I was going to say character, but I was like, oh yeah, based on a real person.
Well, yeah. I would say to both of, I mean, it sounds like we're both nonfiction guys, Justin and I would say there's a whole
nerds.
world out there full of interesting and well-written books that...
Yeah, I'm saying unless Errol Morris does it, like, I don't care.
Perhaps they're...
Thin Blue Line's excellent.
You can read a book
what do you want
and
from
go,
me?
wow, this is stranger than fiction, but I know it's true. Don't you want that feeling? In your
No,
life?
I'd rather be like, man, what an amazing imagination, not beholden to reality in any way, other than just their upbringing.
Yeah,
I will say with true
Poetic
crime
even.
stuff though, you can freak yourself out too much, because actually, back in 2008 or whatever, after having seen the movie of Zodiac, I found the audiobook on like discount CD for like $5 or whatever, and I was on a road trip, and I was like, cool. I was on a road trip through California, and as I was listening to it, I was like, cool, I'm going to put this in the trunk and never listen to this again.
and they never caught him.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. I was like, wow, these crimes truly happened.
You could have
right
gone
where
the
I'm
other
driving.
way and become so obsessed that you solved the crime.
I mean, like,
about that?
like, the Golden State Killer.
Michelle McNamara.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Michelle McNamara. But I don't know that I'm going on like true crime blogs, or I'm not listening to My Favorite Murder. Like, I don't go there. David, are you a murderino?
Do I murder people?
No. The fans of My Favorite Murder podcast are called murderinos.
That's
so.
so deeply unsettling to me.
Well,
Yeah,
Jesus.
if you weren't there from the beginning, yes. Yeah.
I'm going to answer no to both of the questions. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
One which you posed
Yeah,
yourself.
The one perceived question and the one actually posed. Yeah. I was just gonna. Nonfiction also gives you a great chance to go like, I'd love to know more about this, and then you buy it and then you never read it. That's my other great recommendation for nonfiction books.
Oh yeah, as with the Power
YouTube's
Broker,
right
I got a nice 50 pages into that. Someday I'll read more
Yeah, exactly.
and learn about the making of New York City.
One day I will know why LBJ was master of the Senate, but that is not today.
Good Lord.
It looks so appealing to read 4 volumes, but with a potential 5th volume
said it looks
about
appealing.
LBJ
Yes.
in that documentary.
You say the
Turn
straight
every
face.
page, and then when you actually have to sit down and read, you're like, oh right, this would take a lot of time and effort.
But imagine if Will Patton was reading it to you,
Oh, baby.
as he does part of this book.
Yeah.
Well, cool. I think
now we're talking.
Unless we have any other thoughts, I think we should just move on.
I
to...
think the thoughts are nonfiction, bad, stupid, and dumb. Me and David are correct. You two are wrong. Yeah, let's move on. Moving on.
You know, we
No
work
notes.
at
No notes.
David,
we
Halifax.
work at a bookstore, and people
Yeah,
come
that's
and buy nonfiction
predominantly
books.
fiction.
No, okay.
I stand corrected.
You're like photo
Stand
books
corrected.
and fiction. That's what we sell. Nothing else.
No.
I stand uncorrected. That's what
That's
I meant to say.
that's what I was. Yeah, okay.
I stand defiant and
I
right
was
and
glad
righteous.
that you had
and...
seen the light. Apparently,
No,
but
no,
you-
I've
you-
not seen the
you've
light. I
corrected
just see
yourself. Okay.
your mug.
So David sent a message that I think is interesting, which is that since Alan, you didn't totally finish it before we saw the movie, but we should talk a little bit
Oh my God,
about
put me on blast like that. What the fuck?
He didn't do his homework.
I finished it now,
book.
for the record.
The impressions we got reading the book of Killers of the Flower Moon, and then what that set us up for when we saw the movie, and sort of see that, because they are different approaches.
Yeah.
For sure.
Very different approaches.
So even if you want to sort of, Tyler, since you're the synopsis guy, give us a sort of sense of the structure of the book to help us understand how it's laid out.
Yeah, I mean, so I think what's interesting about the book is, so David Grann sort of breaks it down into three bigger pieces, and the first one is solely based on Molly Burkhart, who is one of the main characters, the kind of the person who, in the world of this tragedy, this Osage reign of terror, as it's called, like, is a very central figure because most of her family is murdered.
Yeah, she's sort of like the face of the...
Yeah, the victims, I guess, or someone who sort of lives through most of it. So a lot of that first chronicle is told through her point of view. And through that, you get a lot of the texture in terms of what it is to be an Osage and how they ended up in Oklahoma and how they have this money and the system under which they live.
What exactly, like, what decades are we sort of dealing with here in the book?
In the book, it's basically, it jumps from pretty much like the teens through the end of the 20s, maybe a little 30s action. So it's about 19. So her husband, Ernest Burkhart, who is a white man, returns from World War I. They meet, they marry, and his uncle William Hale is like the king of the Osage Hills. He's this like kindly 50-ish year old man who like came into town and became a successful businessman. So that's, you kind of learn all that information, all the personal information about how it is affecting her. These murders are affecting her and her family, and what's happening to her. She's ill for most of this time. A lot of people are just like dying of a wasting disease, which is you might also know as poison. And
people who have like extremely profitable head rights are wasting
away
to death.
So I guess really like the biggest thing to set up is exactly this group, the Osage people, are bounced from state to state to state by an America that is ever expanding and white people who don't like them, and eventually they end up buying this land from the Cherokee, which sort of guarantees them. They're like one of the few people who actually buy a plot of land to be like, we are living here forever, we own this, you cannot take it from us again. And it's as it's basically described, it's the most arid, rocky, unlivable land, and they're like, white people will never want to move here.
That was a good part of the book. And
interesting, where it's like there's nothing, it's not good for farming, you can't run cattle here, like it's really
they have terrible. No reason to come to us.
They should never want to come here until they strike oil. In which case, and a big part of the book, and obviously the movie goes into this, is that it basically invites a lot of white people who are just pretty much pure evil to be around them. But so what ends up happening is
at the very least greed personified.
Very, very greedy, horrible people. So what ends up happening is they develop this kind of like a collective situation where, again, they have head rights, they have rights to the mineral, so anybody who buys oil has to go through them because they get the mineral rights, and they set it up where it's split evenly amongst everybody. They get like quarterly checks, and again become immediately like the wealthiest people on planet Earth, like per capita, because of all this oil. And the way that it works with the head rights is everybody who is like a full Osage gets a full head right, which could give them hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so what the American government does is like, well, we can't actually trust these people to spend their money. So they set up a conservatorship program or guardianship program, which is quite apropos with our giant standout of Britney Spears, a woman who lived under a conservatorship for many years and couldn't spend her own money or make her own life choices. Is essentially like, that is a very apt comparison to what is essentially done to an entire group of people, where they need to have a white male guardian most of the time, because if they are deemed incompetent, which most of them Osage women were for sure, and a lot of the men, so they have to have a guardian who approves of their spending, and literally like their receipts and bills are being sent back to Washington D.C. People are picking over them, being like, wow, she spent $100 at the butcher this month, that's crazy, why does she need that much meat?
But also like all the local shops are like
gouging the shit
gouging, So an Osage funeral is like 8 times the cost that it should be, all these things.
It's the flip of like gringo prices, it's like, well, Osage prices.
Because of course once there's money there, a town springs up, white people move there,
also,
and they begin to live
with gringo prices. It's totally fine.
So that's allowed. Okay, good.
It's allowed.
So really,
it's the only version that's allowed.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I give it that. basically becomes this horrible system that is imposed upon an entire group of people where they can't really control their money. People are being like, have to beg to like give their kids or get money for their kids or themselves to have like health care, things like that.
Yeah.
And it kind of sets up a reality in which like these head rights become an incredible valuable thing that people will take advantage of by like marrying into the family or collecting insurance money on people and trying to buy their head rights and things because they are meant to only stay within the Osage family. So anyways, that's what you learn. That's kind of the huge big chunk of the first chronicle.
And what sort of sets our story in action is that in addition to the wasting people who it's like, well, they're being poisoned, people start getting shot.
Yeah. People are shot and eventually blown up. From what we know, like the numbers are not clear because like they just were not ever really like
actually every facet of society was hiding all of the
in plain
details.
sight.
Jesus Christ,
just truly in plain sight. So as far as we know, it's like 20 to 30 to over 100 people who were killed in this fashion with no investigation done. So anyways, then the investigation starts, and then the second part of the book is Tom White, cowboy, FBI detective man, and he rules.
I could easily
Texas
watch
Ranger.
a mini series.
The Adventures of Tom White. It would be great. Former Texas Ranger, kind of like new in the Bureau investigation, wants to do right by J. Edgar Hoover.
But also, like, there's that great detail where he gets called into the office and like doesn't take off his cowboy hat. He's like, I'm not going to be one of your college boys. I'm an old-timey
it's a real
Texas Ranger.
justified move.
Keep your hat on. And he's like toweringly tall, which like makes J. Edgar Hoover really uncomfortable, which is great. Sure. Which I did not know that J. Edgar Hoover had like a little pedestal behind his desk to make himself look taller.
Doesn't surprise me.
Not at all. So he's put on the case. He has like a team of guys who sort of infiltrate the town undercover. They gather all this information and get to the heart, at least seemingly,
some of it,
of what's happening. They make arrests and things, and then really the third part of the book is David Grann, the actual author, being like, just from like my cursory research, I was able to, from 80 years later, be like, oh, this guy was in on it, and this guy was in on it, and he probably killed this person, and they probably killed this person, and was able to uncover a much even bigger, more disturbing conspiracy than
Poirot of the past.
He's just going back.
But also, like, even more than conspiracy, it's just sort of like a culture of like, we can get away with killing Osage. So
yes,
you were correct when we were talking about it last night, and I hadn't read the third part of the book yet. It's a crucial part that the movie is missing. I think where it kind of puts everything on Bobby De Niro, his William Hale. In the third part of the book is like, no, this was definitely other people also doing this. He's just the one that people focused on, and it's like all these other guys just completely got away with it.
Yeah. Well, I think the movie like focuses it on him mostly, but it does imply, especially with the Masonic Lodge shit. Yes, exactly. There is that, but it's the implication where they go in and are like, clearly all these people are in on it. That's why they're meeting with. So, but we'll get to it.
So that's sort of the shape of the book, and it isn't strictly like a true crime investigation, but it does have sort of that feel for, especially for the midsection, because so much of it is about Tom White in the book. A lot of the publicity about the film is that we're not going that way. We're focusing on the characters of Molly, whose family is basically wiped out by these killings, the Reign of Terror, and her husband, who's the nephew of William Hale, and who's seemingly just very nice white guy. Like somehow she got a good one. So I think going into the movie I had a lot of questions because like I saw a clip from the movie and I was like, oh, that's not it. This is a scene where Molly's being driven by Ernest in his taxi, and I'm like, this is not anything that's even in the book. I'm sure that Eric Roth and Scorsese did like more research to know this.
I think that's in there mostly to give us the benefit of the doubt that he might actually be in love with her. The fact that he came to know her before his uncle was like, yeah, you should marry her.
Yeah, and I think I even had heard, and it was reading the book. It was interesting because, like, obviously going in knowing, having heard the same sort of publicity, and I think I even remember there had been like a Variety story where they're like, they've totally retooled it. It was going to be DiCaprio was the FBI guy, now he's playing this guy, and like Clemens is going to play this character. And then you read the book and you're like, we really don't know much about Ernest Burkhart. Like, there is, I mean, we have some of his actions are in the book to a certain extent, but there is just really not much information about him. And so it kind of leaves, it left a very big hole in terms of like what I kind of assumed the movie would be, because I kind of felt like I'd go in knowing more, I guess, about the character.
Yeah, I definitely went in with this sort of curious. I'm like, curious, what's this going to be? What about you, David?
Yeah, no, I agree with that, because when I was reading the book and as it was getting closer to the end, I try not to watch too many trailers of movies that I genuinely want to watch, because, you know, it gets spoiled sometimes, and
every time.
And because you set certain expectations for yourself, you know, going into it. But with this specifically, I was like, man, Ernest was just, like, as far as like mentioned in the book, it was more of a passing thought than anything. I think they focused so much more on Molly, her family, and also William Hale. I think there was just a lack of Tom White. I mean, that would have been. I think in the movie his role was like so diminished, and I'm like, he's this badass Texas former Ranger.
I mean, you don't even need the badass part. Just like the aspect of him later in life being like, all these men that worked for me, I want them to be remembered.
That
and like,
was
him trying to get the story written. Like, it was like great details.
The Tom White side story, even if it's, you know, been done, which was the reason for like sort of minimizing it. Like, it still would be a good story. Like maybe Scorsese doesn't want to do it, but someone else can do the Tom White story.
No, I get focusing on Molly, but I feel like they should have focused more. I still feel like I have no idea what was really going on through her mind, even though the movie literally has moments of sharing her inner thoughts. I feel like I could have used a lot more of that, because it's so interesting to me that she stood by him for so long, and I kind of wanted them to go into that a little bit more, but maybe they were worried about making her look foolish or something like that.
Yeah, and I see that, but yeah, it's one of those things where it is frustrating that Scorsese's greatest interest in is sort of in the sinner, like, and that's what so many of his movies are about, and so like he found the sinner. The one who the Judas basically of his story, and like made that the focus of his film. But I agree, it's like but that doesn't mean I don't want to know more about Molly, even like when she's sort of being poisoned and like can't really formulate. But
because a strong part of her knows that what is happening to her, and probably who is doing it, but maybe through coercion or whatever, she still sides with Ernest. And the movie kind of says, like, you know, maybe it's because of love, but I feel like they didn't really go into their blossoming love enough, at least for me.
Oh, really? I felt like that was painted well. I don't know.
I know that they're in love, but I'm saying I didn't see it really happen.
I feel like because
it's just a thing.
Because of the compressions and the like time jumps forward, there's definitely like moments in the development of their like married life that would kind of have been nice.
It goes from like playful, them like waiting out the storm in silence, to just like married with a couple kids, and I feel like there was a jump there. That something could have been more said. I guess I don't know.
That's interesting. I think that is a very important scene in the movie, specifically the thunderstorm scene. Because
it's a great scene.
It's really phenomenal, and it kind of gives you. I think that's maybe what gives you probably, until things start to shift within it, like the clearest example of what their relationship is probably like for a long time, where it's like she's like clearly a very smart, capable person, and he is sort of this guy who can be very easily molded, which we see throughout the movie, and she's able to
will not shut up.
Will not. Yeah, well, he can't help himself. He cannot help himself. But like she literally is like, you're gonna sit in this chair. We have to wait out the storm. You have to be still. You have to be quiet. And you could kind of see why, I think, in that moment, why he likes being with her is because she is a woman who's like telling him what to do.
Yeah, just like Hale does.
Yeah, just like Hale does. Exactly. And that's sort of the conflict, right? Is him being caught between these two forces. Someone who ostensibly, I think,
at least the movie version of him. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, unfortunately, we don't really.
Right. I know.
No. But it does seem like that was also the reality. I mean, they had multiple kids together. They were with each other. I don't know. I mean, it's.
As you know, kids can only come from love.
That's true.
So.
Hey,
I feel like there's the limit of like documentary evidence, and like Scorsese and Eric Roth probably just were like, I feel more comfortable speculating on Ernest with the information we don't have than speculating on Molly. But it almost is like, I kind of wish maybe you brought in someone else then to work on Molly, because I want more of her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that impulse, but I do feel like maybe it's just from my viewing, Lily Gladstone is also just like such an incredibly magnetic presence that I didn't feel like I needed that much more. I kind of just got it from her face, at least. I'd want to see it again to maybe see if I feel more towards your way. But as I was watching it, I was just like, I kind of understand this woman. Like, she is.
No, I feel that too, and she was fantastic. I just felt like, I don't know, like her side of the story still felt diminished in some way to me. Like, I mean, if you're going to embellish Ernest, embellish her as well.
But also, like, that's the Robert Downey Jr. from Zodiac effect I'm talking about. Like, when you think about it, she has fewer scenes than you think, but when she's there, it's always just a fantastic scene.
Yeah. Incredible, yeah. And we are, in theory, I guess we are locked into Ernest's perspective, like, for most of the movie. Like, she's one of the only people who I think we get scenes where we're not seeing what Ernest is really thinking, right? I mean, we're processing it as he processes it, which is interesting. And then we get that killer moment where we get her perspective when she's going to Washington, and it's sort of the reverse of him coming off the train and being like, look how welcome I am here. It's crazy. All these white guys are fighting, and I'm having a good time. Yeah. And she's leaving, and she just sees all these eyes on her, and it's like, oh, that says more to me than, I don't know, than just about anything else in the movie. It's a powerful shot. Anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More broadly, just if the listeners don't know, so the movie, rather than taking a crime investigation route, instead tries to relay events in sort of like the chronology in which they would have happened. And it's a slightly more conventional story in that way, because we're not uncovering different things at different times.
Yeah, we just know right at the beginning.
Yeah, so it begins with, as you said, Ernest Burkhart returning from war, coming to town to Fairfax, Oklahoma, Pawhuska, or wherever it is. And then through that, like, finding his place in his uncle's organization, because it really is. He's basically a racketeer, but he's got the face of a businessman. And he meets Molly, driving her around because, she has the money to, like, afford a taxi, and he is the one who has to drive the taxi. And yeah, we're like you said, we're supposed to intuit that he's really genuinely into her, but his uncle, played by Robert De Niro, keeps sort of pushing him. Yeah, you should marry her because those headrights, that's good. Them's good eating.
Which, as we know, I mean, at least in the movie version, again, going back to it, it's like the only two things we really know about Ernest Burkhart is he loves money and he loves women.
But also whiskey.
He says multiple times. And whiskey. He likes
multiple
3 things.
times he compares women, his love of women, to his love of money. And most times he says, I love money almost
as much as I love my wife.
But it's like, you sure?
Yeah.
You sure that's not flip, bro?
I mean, I think it depends on the day.
Yeah,
a little bit.
I guess.
I guess that is one thing, Justin, is kind of you're saying as well, is like the book sets it up in that first chronicle, like William Hale, friend to the Osage. Yeah. He's hiring private detectives to help them. He's putting up reward money.
Speaking their language.
They've taken him into the inner circle in many ways, and it is sort of revealed in the second chronicle that he is the man who is behind all of this. Yeah. So it is much more of a I guess meant to be a gut punch or a surprise that he is the man who's been doing this because he has presented himself in such a way, and that's the information we get.
You're like, oh, he's a good one.
He's one of the good ones.
But it's actually, he's the mastermind behind some of the worst shit ever.
Turns out there are good ones.
In human history.
I did miss that like gut punch from the movie, since we know from the beginning, but it creates a more interesting perspective in which we know from the very beginning that he's just a piece of fucking shit.
Yeah.
He's just really clever.
Yeah.
And he's just using his like face, like his smiling veneer to like trick everyone.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's an interesting, I don't know. I don't know if I love it more than what the book did, but it's an interesting take.
It gives everything just a genuinely kind of like tragic undercurrent. Like I think I said this after we watched it last night. It's like it's a great movie that made me feel really bad for just a long time, because you especially when we've read the book like right before, it's like you just pick names, like so you start hearing names you've heard in the book and you're like, oh, this guy, and then oh no, and so it just becomes a slow descent into whatever happens to Henry Roan or Rita and Bill Smith and these characters who, you know, you grow to like, you're spending almost 3 hours with them. But
it's pretty hard not to like
Henry Roan. He rules.
I was going to say Bobby De Niro.
Oh, Bobby De Niro too. I mean,
that's so fucking funny in this movie.
He's
like,
really great.
That's kind of the genius of it, to make you like this, like, this piece of shit.
Well,
but it's like, it's just Bobby De Niro like eating up the scenery. That's why I'm enjoying this.
Is that your impression? Your impression too, David?
Of Bobby De Niro?
I mean, just sort of
Bobby
the atmosphere, and also like, yeah, Bobby De Niro.
Bobby Money,
like,
baby, Bobby Money.
Like, were you won over by him, or were you just like the whole time?
Well, I wasn't won over by him, bro.
No, you were like
fully
you were
agree
like
with
you were
his-
like Justice for William Hale. Yeah.
I just love seeing them in
The
scenes. That's all.
Oklahoma
That's all that
governor
I'm saying.
should go back and pardon him.
So
Do it
no.
right now.
Oh God.
Oh
Not
yeah,
saying
no,
that.
it was just seeing his performance. It was just kind of perfect. Of exact as I was reading like William Hale and just the type of person that he was. Yeah, I mean, Robert, and it was as if he translated that just so perfectly. And I'm like, yeah, you were such a horrible person, but I would so enjoy a smoke with you. Like, I would absolutely enjoy that. So
Sure.
yeah, I think it was one of my favorite like older performances that he's done.
And
You
also
didn't
as
like About My Father with Sebastian Maniscalco?
Well, I was going to bring up Bad Grandpa.
Bad Grandpa.
Very on par. Yeah,
War with Grandpa.
Yeah, War
Yes.
with Grandpa. Yeah.
well, because I was gonna say that well, no, but he was also in Dirty Grandpa.
He was in
wasn't
Dirty
Dirty
Grandpa.
Grandpa.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's
Sorry,
the one.
had to clear
yeah,
that
it's
up.
like War with
too many
my grandpa.
raunchy grandpa movies.
Yeah. There is
Not enough. As far
Not
as
there is war.
Too many and
There's
not enough at
dirty
the same time.
and there is bad, and they
What I
are
was
grandpa.
what I was going to say is beforehand you had said something about like, you know, William Hale in real life was in his early 50s and De Niro is 70s, 80s.
I think he's just
He's-
about to be 80,
yeah.
maybe.
Yeah. But like I don't question it that he's like an over the hill. Like he's still projecting just this but also him being older does make it also give him a little more gravitas to be like the king of the Osage Hills.
And he's like a little more. You're just like, oh, he's so kindly. He's like old, and and you know what they didn't do in this one? They didn't have him curb stomp someone. So you're in The Irishman where he like.
Oh, I was like, I don't remember that from the fucking book. What are you talking about?
That's what I was.
Actually, that is funny because like there is the moment where he has Ernest's brother paddle him, but like he hands the paddle to him. If he had tried to be the one to paddle, then that would be a curb stomp situation where you're like,
does he have
I don't know, old man.
Does he have the power?
But I believe that who's the actor that plays
he's
Ernest's
a
brother?
really good character actor. Scott something. Look it up.
Like he beats him good, and I'm just like, yeah, I could see how even without this moment of violence, or like how this violence would continue to keep Ernest under the thumb of the family.
Scott Shepherd.
Yeah.
That's an incredible scene for the production design. Obviously, like that scene, it just like jumped off of the screen to me, where it's the black and white like Masonic Lodge, the checkerboard floor. So you're like, okay, Ernest is being pushed around like a pawn, and then there's the incredible moment in De Niro's glasses. You get like the reflection of the floor in his glasses, which is just like, life is a game to this man, and he sees things as black and white. He gets money, and other people have to die, and that is as simply as he looks at things. And I was like, that's fucking incredible.
Well, even like not to read too much into it, like the moment where you can tell he's like, if I have to kill Ernest, I will, and I just need to get him to sign this paper to give me the money.
And what an amazing scene that was.
In that scene, all you see in his glasses is the paper.
Yep. Yeah.
Like, I'm sure it's just like a fluke of the way that De Niro was holding it, but the fact that like his eyes are literally just on the paper as he's talking to.
And Ernest knowing that this is his like signing
Death
over
warrant,
his life,
basically.
and he's just like still being talked into it.
Not a better scene since Samuel L. Jackson talked Chris Tucker into his trunk in Jackie Brown with the promise of Roscoe's.
Yeah.
Has there been a moment where a person signed themselves up to be killed faster?
Yeah.
And incredible. Oh, it's so good. Yeah.
So wait, David, I feel like we rushed a little bit past it. Like, what is your impression of the two, like, I guess, romantic leads of Ernest and Molly, as played by DiCaprio and Lily Gladstone?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the movie especially, they really wanted to amp up the closeness that the two had. In the book, I think it was present, but I guess maybe I just need a few days to kind of let it sink in, because I'm going to be honest, I don't know what the intention was to kind of have Ernest as kind of the main focal point and perspective of the story.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I don't think Martin Scorsese wanted us to feel sympathetic for him, but there was some scenes where I was thinking maybe I don't know. I guess that's something that I'm still kind of struggling.
He's
with-
definitely
with the
more
intent.
nuanced than I was kind of expecting.
And I don't know if I like that or not. I
Same.
don't know.
I feel weird about it.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the central question of the movie on some
Yeah.
level. And I think that's
Yeah.
what changing the order around is trying to accomplish on some level, is like, what is, like, it just lets you seep into these guys' psychology, where I think on some level they are convincing themselves, like, this is the, like, American psychosis of, like, oh no, these horrible things we're doing are actually for the greater good.
Yeah.
They're better for them.
For
They're
our
better
children.
for us. It's
Yeah.
for our people.
Well, because as
Yeah.
he says many times, they're going to die out anyways.
Yes.
We might
It's
as well
like-
have this money. It's like, well,
and just,
you're helping
I do,
them along, man.
on some level, like, genuinely believe, like, William Hale probably is like, I was good for those people. Like, I was doing the right thing.
Yeah, the fact that they both wanted to return back, and it's like
and would write
mind
them
blowing.
letters and go back, and it's like, so there's like a real
They
sickness.
believe their own legend.
Yeah,
to some
they're
degree,
they're high on their own supply of like,
Yeah.
we are doing the right thing even as we murder these people.
Yeah.
And it's like, that is kind of the story of America on many levels.
Well, sure.
Of convincing ourselves that doing a horrible thing is actually just really good. It's interesting, and I think
a
like
lot of earnest in this movie, man.
a lot, and it,
lot of
for
earnest
very
in this
little
movie.
in the book, and it's like, yeah, I mean, we apparently don't know. Like, was he like a hijacker? Like, I don't know. It's you know, but it was an interesting choice, I guess, and only that like.
Well, is it? I think that's something that we should hash out. Like, is it a more interesting choice to do that story versus the traditional like investigation?
I understand not wanting to do the investigation, because that's like a very formulaic type of movie of like justice prevailing in the end, and they probably would have had to goose even more details to make that story
And
make
I think
sense.
the other sort of problem with that is you've then even further relegated the Osage like out of this story. If it's
Yes.
like Tom White rides up on a horse,
Then it literally
and he
is the
helps
white
save
man in the
all their
white
problems,
in the white
and
hat
it's like,
solving. Sure.
so we get a
I get
lot
that.
more of their culture coming in
But
through this way.
since you're gonna focus more on I just feel like I think Ernest and Molly should have been swapped, or at least more equal to each
Well,
other.
that's the thing is I thought it was very interesting that there was that scene, which I'm assuming was like at least partly improvised, which was the council meeting of like the tribal elders or whatever you want to call it, where they're talking about like, what are we going to do to start dealing with these white people killing us. And obviously that felt very real, and obviously I think Scorsese was like, okay, here's the idea, now say what you feel.
Right.
And it seems like a nice moment, but it also does feel like I'm ceding this to you, but then I'm going to take it back and tell the story about Ernest Burkhart that I want to tell.
Yeah. I think. Well, so I don't know if anyone has seen. Everyone else has seen the video going around of the Osage consultant who like. Who was like the person who gave Lily Gladstone?
Oh yeah, on the red carpet.
Yeah, on the red carpet.
yeah.
It's like it's a clip that's gone, I feel like, very viral. But I'll just echo his point briefly, which is that I think he said it's like, I would want it I watched this movie and he has a similar thought of like, I would want this to be the Molly Burkhart story, but I don't know if that's a story that I would want Martin Scorsese to tell or can tell.
Sure.
But similarly, it's like he's not making this movie for the Osage. Like the Osage know what happened. Like that is their story. They have to live with it. He's making it for the people from the other side of this who have to have a mirror held up to them to say this is what happens in this country.
When I was killing time before the movie last night, I was in Barnes & Noble and I picked up this magazine, which I took a picture of, and was Cowboys and Indians magazine, which established 1993, which is mind-boggling. Wow. That in '93 you're like, we need a Cowboys and Indians magazine.
Yeah.
And we're going to call it that.
But in the article, they talk about the writer is like, white people in Oklahoma don't know this story, and they're in Oklahoma. So it is sort of like one of those things that, like, I'm sure shining a light on it is a step. And maybe there does need to be the step where an Osage filmmaker makes the Molly Burkhart story.
Yeah.
And so for that, like, I'm not going to ding it as much, but I do feel like from a narrative satisfaction, I would want more Molly in this story.
Yeah.
It is tough because I guess there is an hour where she is just sick in bed, and now there are moments of that are incredibly powerful, like that the owl.
Yeah, that her mother sees,
and then she sees incredible stuff. Also, it's so.
Also, the William Hill maybe or maybe not being there, but then revealed to not being there.
Jesus, I mean, a jump scare and a half. Truly, insane. And that one scene where he burns his ranch and in the bedroom, the visuals of that were incredible. And just so but it's not
just constantly making money. Just constantly scheming and constantly conning.
Getting the fire insurance policy and burning it up.
Which I think happens chronologically much earlier than the movie.
It doesn't happen while the FBI guys are there, for sure.
I think they just wanted a way to establish that the FBI guys were integrating themselves into the community in different roles.
Right.
And that William Hill is king of hell. Essentially. Which is wild.
I'll show you the life of the mind.
I think, just a general thought, I think, collectively, as a movie, once it finished, I'm like, even though the perspective of Ernest was kind of not completely settling me off, but I think it was great all around. And I was thinking about, for Molly and how much she ended up getting for representation. I think they painted her story fantastically, even though it could have been more, but I'm like, no, I think they did what they had to do to kind of show her pain. Just the amount of coffins she had to see bury. Those scenes are still sticking with me. I feel like it's those scenes of her just grieving. It's going to stick with me for a couple weeks. I think they did great with that. Kind of not like a shock value, but it felt like it needed to be done. And
the description in the book of a crowd looking at Anna Brown's corpse is so much different than seeing that crowd of people standing around Anna Brown's corpse as it's exhumed and then I don't know that it was autopsied there, but for the film it is, and it just drives it home that it's a fucked up spectacle.
Which it was.
Hey, it was 1923. What else did people have to do?
I guess, other than be brutal savages.
They had to go down and be like, let's go see this dead body. Stand By Me style. Well, before we get to, before we get to the end, sorry.
Oh my God. I'm sorry, but that did just remind me, because the crowd's already there, and there's just that amazing POV shot of as she's being led to her sister's dead body. That's just the POVs of people turning and just so perfectly executed. The actors do it so well. It's just
including the killers,
looks,
including the literal killers of her.
Takes off his hat. Oh, Molly,
crazy.
I'm so sorry.
You just all those looks. Oh my God!
It's a great scene.
That's why they use it in the trailer for sure.
It's actually we should maybe address the many musicians in the film, because Jason Isbell plays this guy Bill Smith, who in real life was married to one of Molly's sisters. She died. Was that established if that was just a genuine disease or
wasting illness, right?
Okay.
So
She died of a wasting illness.
she was poisoned probably.
I'd say 95% chance of that.
And then because he's been hanging out with the family so long, he ends up marrying another one of Molly's sisters after that one dies. And that character, Bill Smith, is played by Jason Isbell, who at first I was just like, oh, this is a kind of cool character actor. And then I was like, oh shit, that's Jason Isbell. And he has a scene where he's face to face with Ernest Burkhart, and they do not like each other, and they just like it's kind of like a hillbilly shade off, and it just like throwing shade like crazy.
I'm not nervous. I just don't like you.
I just don't like you. Well, I'm just the way God made me.
I can't help that.
It's incredible that like Jason Isbell, who by all accounts I don't think has acted in anything else, is just like, yeah, I'll sit across from Leonardo DiCaprio and like crush, go head to head, and like holds the screen. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's just really unbelievable. I'm
realizing now it would be an Okie shade off, not a hillbilly shade off.
Yes.
There's no hills. It's a very rocky terrain.
But they keep saying the Osage Hills.
I guess
Maybe there are hills. Maybe they count the rocks as
But are
Gentle
they
slopes.
gentle.
Yeah, but are they billies in those hills? I'd like to know.
This is the
Goat or two, sure.
Well, so I think that like on top of everything else, the marriage being so the focal point, I think you can come away with a lot of different opinions about it. Like, did everyone feel like, was there any love there? Was there a genuine love there? Was it all? I think that's what the whole movie is sort of struggling with. How did you feel about that, David?
Yeah, I think that is the main question that it wants. I think it's trying to be ambiguous as well. It's like, did they? I remember one part in the book where I think Ernest, he finally confessed in court, and then I think like I kind of forgot, but basically there was this look that Molly gave him, and it was just cold. And I think, when you have kids with someone, I'm sure that there's bound to be some type of, close relationship.
I don't know, man.
And I would say most cases.
I don't know. There's a lot of families out there who beg to differ, man.
I think the film fudges some of those facts from the book in the name of ambiguity.
Yeah.
Because as he like confesses in the movie, she's still on talking terms with him. And I had that thought. Mm-hmm. I was like, once he admits some of the shit that he did, she should just give him the cold shoulder. But I think they want the dramatic satisfaction of, because there is the whole issue is she has diabetes, and he's giving her insulin, but it's insulin laced with morphine. I forget.
And maybe something before then,
right? Because
the
not
morphine is
immediately
just
helping her either. Yeah, slow her down.
And she, in the movie, she's like, she has the confrontation where she's like, "What was in the shots?"
Yeah,
and the movie once is like, "We need that," and I get that, but
I think the movie, for me, the only clear sign of love is that she loves him. That seems certain to me in her behavior and her propositioning him when she's like, "You give me the shots, like surely you won't poison me."
Right.
She loves.
That's like her final like challenge is like, if he loves me, he won't poison me, kind of thing. That's how I took it. Yeah. Whereas on the flip side, it's never really clear if he loves her or not. I think he does or did at some point, maybe, but his greed ultimately wins out every time. I think that's sort of what it's trying to say.
I think that's the ambiguity that Scorsese is laying in there, is that we're reading her to see like, why is she choosing to let him give her the shit? I think we're reading that like she wants him to prove himself,
right?
Even though that's not in dialogue, even though we're not getting like an inner monologue. So I understand the choice, but I wish there was something a little more concrete. And in the same way, in the name of ambiguity, they fudge the fact about the explosion, which we haven't really covered. But but so Bill Smith, the Jason Isbell character, and Molly's sister Rita are blown up in a house, and it's engineered by
the
William
Soup
Hale.
Man.
Yeah, the Soup Man is hired by William
It's a great
Hale
name.
via Ernest. And in real life, Molly was supposed to be there too with the kids. They were supposed to stay overnight, and they were all going to get blown up. But because of a fluke of his their son, Cowboy, has earaches, then she brought him home so that she could care for him, and that's why she wasn't there for the explosion. In the movie, he's more like, you can't stay at that house. You gotta stay home.
But that's already when she's come back. He's like, where were you?
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like that concern and sort of like, well, you shouldn't stay out so late. Blah blah blah. But it's sort of like, I don't know. I think at this point he's like, okay, I'm gonna blow her up and get the money. But the movie goes for that more ambiguous, like which is the role and which is real.
I do think in the book there is some, obviously this happened 75, almost 100 years ago, or over 100, or nearly 100 years, but it's like, when the book's written, that is a thing that's being told to David Grann, 90 years later, from a child, from the child's point of view, who's now an adult, like, I think even the grandchild, like, the son of that person, the kid who had the earache. So I do, I think there is some inference as to like whether or not Ernest knew that it was going to exactly happen that night. I don't know that we ever know that that's like confirmed. So like they're just again, this is the thing. It's like you said, there's not hard facts about it. So like, and I'm not trying to say like Ernest was right, but I think there is like ambiguity.
For
and
Ernest, is that what you were saying to me before the podcast?
Nope, he's a bad guy. We don't like him. But like in that detail, when I read the book, it stuck just a little to me. Like I think there's some inferring. There's some just.
Well, you have to when all the fucking evidence.
Of course,
is gone.
Of course. So I don't know if we should think he's the worst man alive or just a guy who was like obviously kind of dumb and way in over his head and very greedy and I don't know if he thought his wife would have been killed that night. It might have just happened, and he would have obviously and he would have to dealt with that. But I don't know if it was like implied specifically. He was like, "You should have been there."
I see.
I think again,
you're right. I guess in the book it is ambiguous as well. Like, how much did he know?
Yeah. In terms of like if the job was going to be that night or not.
Which also is kind of the movie too. Is like, how much is he understanding his uncle's plan, and how much is he a willing participant, and how much does he a dupe?
Right, exactly. Because like there are, for a while, it is like Hale, I feel like, pushing him along, being like, "This is for the best. This is for the best," and you're just like, "Oh, this guy just buys it. This guy's just like a dummy." And then at a certain point, you understand, he's real dumb. Which all these guys are, which I think is like kind of interesting as well. But so that's again, it's like it's ambiguous, but that is like obviously. I think that detail is in. They put it in the movie to be like, "Oh, she was going to be there, but he wants her home," but like. Who knows? I don't know. You're right, and that is kind of it's a choice. They had to make a choice. But you're right. I
think maybe it speaks to my dark opinion of humanity that I was just like, he was planning to blow her up that night.
Right. We don't know. Maybe he was. We don't know.
At some point he's planning to get that money, whether he's thought it through or not.
And he does love that money.
I love that money, sir.
I love that money, sir. Did anyone else think he was just Rick Dalton playing this character?
A little bit.
It's the same accent. A little bit. Of time in Hollywood.
Yeah.
I thought it was good, but
that was like overall. I feel like I still have to process this movie a bit, but overall I really liked it. But there are definitely Leonardo moments where I'm just like, oh, I've seen this move before.
Yeah.
And it kind of takes me out a little bit.
Yeah. You know what was an incredible acting thing between him and De Niro is they both have like the same exact like frowny face. Like I don't know if anyone else clocked this is like a perfect half circle frown, and I was like, man, that's good acting. They both got that frown. It's good.
Yeah, I wonder what it would have been like if there was someone in this role other than Leo. Like maybe I would buy it a little bit more. Their love. If it wasn't someone who's like clearly shining as brightly as he can at all possible moments. I don't know.
I had a thought of like Ernest is like maybe like in the rough drafts of the script, his role might have been significantly smaller if it weren't for
Leonardo.
I feel he's just big and greedy when it comes to films. Maybe with him being attracted to the role, kind of got expanded. I don't know. That was a thought.
I feel like that's definitely possible.
Because, I mean, reading, again, like I said, backtracking, like reading the book, I was like, well, yeah, Ernest is a prominent piece to this puzzle, but I didn't really. I wouldn't. If I were to adapt the movie myself, I wouldn't think of using Ernest as like the main focal point or the protagonist quotes or that
I mean, the whole movie pivots around him and Molly, but to a greater degree him.
I feel like they might have beefed it up just because of Leo. I think that's
especially when you say he was supposed to play.
He was going to be white, and
that's
then
an interesting.
They switched it to him being Ernest, and I think that's when it was definitely.
Does that mean Jesse was going to play Ernest?
That I don't know, actually.
Because I think that might have been very interesting to me.
Yeah, if you flip them and kind of do it in the same way, I mean, and just let him Leo come in and be awesome.
Clemens has played a lot of bad guys. He's owed something good, something righteous for once.
I mean, I loved how much Jesse Plemons called Leonardo DiCaprio's son.
Yeah.
And he's like 15 years younger than him. Yeah, son. It's like, so you tell him, Jesse. You tell him.
It's pretty condescending. It's great.
Oh, it's so good,
yeah.
It was an interesting. I don't know. Leo, it definitely. He's a movie star, and I think that charm is going to keep you with him longer.
But I think in this movie, if you're going to have a movie star, it should be Hale, which it was.
Yeah,
and I think everyone else should be played more. I don't know, realistic or just pared down a little bit.
Yeah, because it is the sort of like operatic tragedy of like the person that thinks they're the hero, but really they're the villain. And obviously that's
or the character that knows he's the villain but chooses to
lies to himself.
That he's
like that's the thing at the end. Like when I feel like it's one of those things where he's saying as much to convince Molly or himself as Molly when he's like, I've told everything. My soul is clean. And then she's like, what'd you put in the shots?
And he's like, huh?
Short circuits. Yeah, he can't answer.
Wait, what are we talking about again?
I mean, even in the moment where we should talk about Brendan Fraser.
God,
Exploding into this movie,
ripping through.
So
I need to console my clients.
the court case that comes from the investigation that Tom White against Hale, and so Hale is the defendant.
Yes, Hale is the defendant with. They get that other poor guy, not poor, I mean he's a piece of shit too, but John Ramsey, who's got like 10 kids, who kills Henry Roan. It's him and Hale are the
after
two.
befriending him,
Jesus, it was so sad.
Rough.
And literally there's a moment like where we got to kill somebody, and he's like, "Oh, I don't want to do that." Well, it's an Osage. Well, that's a different story.
Yeah,
and you're like, "Oh, this guy sucks."
And then
too.
Fuck, man.
But he gets nothing but shit the whole movie. But yeah, it's him and Hale are the two defendants in the court case specifically, and so Brendan Fraser is Hale's attorney, and he just pops up and goes like, I need to confer with my client, and like just at a 12, and it's incredible.
Ever since I saw the trailer and I see him like cackling in that one shot in the trailer, I was like, oh, we're gonna get some good Brendan Fraser.
Good Fraser.
And we got a little bit, but
it was a taste.
I could have used a little bit more.
Yeah.
People in our crowd applauded when they saw him. Just
that
like
is
gave
true.
him like
before he talked, just the pan over him in the courtroom.
Yeah.
He got
Audible
applause.
gasps.
So good. And there's a moment where he basically convinces Ernest to no longer be an informant. So Ernest is arrested. He flips on his uncle. He then is told, he confers with his client, with his lawyer, who tells him, they beat you. They beat you.
Yeah, and he doesn't get it at first. He's like, no, they didn't. He's like, they did.
They did. They beat you. And so, literally, again, these lies are just being built into his head. And, he goes and talks to Molly, and he's like, they beat me.
Yeah.
They beat. And you see by then, again, he's
believes
almost believing it.
What does Fraser call him? A stupid boy?
A stupid boy? Yeah, he's
trying to save you, you stupid boy.
Yeah, incredible. And then he has two killer Ned Beatty network-esque scenes basically, which Jesus, the blocking of that scene where he basically brings him in to meet the entire town, being like
the actual conspiracy.
These people
made visual
are all in on it, and it's just so perfectly
the Undertaker was there, the doctors were there.
It's
pretty wild.
There's no person in this movie who's at all good, because literally
one of my favorite quotes when
Well, except for most of the Osage.
Oh, I guess that's true.
Right.
Yeah, yes, for sure.
Martin Scorsese explained in an interview that this wasn't really a who done it. This was a who didn't do it. You know?
Oh, that's so good. Yeah.
He's right.
It's
Yeah.
true. It's like, yeah, look to your left, look to your right. Well, yeah.
I guess the one maybe okay guy was the butcher that was almost being framed.
You're not my friend.
Yeah, he's
Roy
like,
Bunch.
You're not my friend.
That guy
Roy,
ruled.
Yeah, Roy Bunch, yeah.
I think it's the guy. It's Molly's guardian, who like pours over her bills and is like a total dick to her.
Yeah.
You also learn that I think he's the
He's in the KKK.
Yeah, he's in the KKK.
parade.
Oh yeah, when he's like the knights
And
are marching
he's
in.
he's in the jury. He's
Yeah.
on the jury as if there's no conflict of interest
Yeah.
with this man. It's like so this is a small town, like small world.
Yeah.
I also think he's the guy from the gas station in No Country for Old Men, right? Is that who that actor is?
Oh,
it's been too long.
maybe.
I gotta
Yeah, I don't know.
Possibly. I think that actor is definitely in there. I'm not sure if it's him though. But anyways, I just
Yeah.
kept thinking of that during it as well.
I thought it was also just a random little note that I forgot to bring up. It's in the book. It's clear that Ernest becomes her like
Guardian,
guardian, but they don't really say that in the movie.
No,
they kind of like channel the guardian situation through her role alone. I don't know. It's interesting.
That
choice.
was an interesting choice because usually I think that was the point of like a lot of Osage women marrying white men was like, oh, at least I'll be married to my guardian. So
And
if
I
like
can-
my
yeah.
child is ill, they'll pay me. I get money, you know.
Yeah, and I thought they might explore that a little bit more, but they just kind of whatever.
Yeah.
Brush it aside.
That was a detail that didn't quite make it.
Yeah.
But I was good. So now that we're like in the court element of it, I think one thing that is interesting they do different in the movie that is in the book is that basically. So obviously Ernest Burkhart recants. Like he gets, Hale gets his fingers on him one more time, and then in the book, I did think this was like kind of an interesting thing they chose to not put in there is that he basically then decides like I will testify against my uncle, understanding like I will go to trial, my own separate trial because I'm not going to get immunity anymore, and then he decides I'm going to plead guilty, knowing he's going to get life in prison, and then still, testify against his uncle, which did give me some feeling of like he obviously is like racked with guilt and like feels something for Molly if he was willing to do that. It's like he had the deal where he could have just testified and gotten away scot-free, whereas in the movie they do it where it's like his one of his daughters sadly passes away, so then he like changes his mind and then has to testify, and his uncle's like, well, they're going to give you immunity but you're not going to really get it. It's like maybe it was just too many
That's
steps.
in the book as well. It's just not hit on like that's the reason.
The reason why, that it is,
But
in
it's
there.
definitely kind of portrayed around the same, or it's like related the same amount
It
of time.
feels like they're like he's getting a better deal in the movie to testify, and like he's going back on his uncle, not like he's racked out of guilt, but I guess towards maybe it was the choice to be like, oh, he cares more about his family, knowing like he's not going to go to prison. I don't know. It was an interesting. I thought like that was actually one of the few things from the book where I was like, oh, maybe this guy did love his family. Like, and he was so racked with guilt, he eventually just
Well, he
was like,
definitely
put me in
loves his
prison.
son Cowboy.
Yes, he does. Cowboy
Which there's
Wolves.
that great scene in the movie of them being like, "Oh, he's more fair of the two. It's so crazy. It's
Oh boy, just watch.
maybe one of the most overtly racist scenes I've ever seen in my life. It was quite something to watch."
I thought you were going to talk about the scene where he's in the pool hall with Cowboy, and he's like, "Cowboy, don't let him take you." It's like, oh boy, jeez,
I got to take care of my wife. She's sick.
she's sick. She's real sick.
She's real sick.
Cowboy, come on, let's go.
Yeah.
This Cowboy's just shooting pool at age 3. Yeah. Oh, okay, he's cool. Cowboy's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. I think timing wise, we should get into our ratings. Unless you have any.
Well, I feel
final
like
thoughts.
we have to talk about the very, very end of it being a radio play.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So Scorsese mentioned in, I think, the interview with Edgar Wright, I'm sure he mentioned some other things, that in the Mervyn LeRoy film, The FBI Story, that I believe came out in the 50s, it does talk about that the FBI basically came into being on the back of the Osage murder investigation. But that it's a very caricatured thing, and I think that's kind of what he's paying tribute to in this. We're jumping forward to the 50s. It's not a movie, but it's a radio radio program performance of the FBI approved
Version
case
of events.
file.
Yeah.
It's Jack White is there as one
White
of
is
the
there.
actors.
Lucky Strikes
doing-
are there.
Lucky, yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was the
Very
one thing. I was like, the
Ernest
one
being like,
character.
light my lucky for me, please.
Yeah, exactly.
Something like that.
Thank you. That's what I was trying to get at.
Yeah. Which I think it does cover in the book that like they did do it as radio plays at some point, like that. It was a story that becomes once again these poor people have their own story made a part of an American myth that minimizes them again. In a world where they are basically forgotten, the story of them is forgotten, except for, isn't it cool that the FBI solved those murders that one time?
Yeah.
And I think that's essentially what he's getting at in that scene.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. A part of me sees the book as like a more interesting portrayal would have been like maybe 4 or 5 mini movies or like a mini series of sorts. Like the first part, you get 2-part. You get Molly's side, you get Ernest's murkiness or whatever. Then you get the investigation, and then you get the Poirot from the past, like putting it all together like a mastermind. I don't know. It just if it's gonna give Ernest so much nuance, I wish everyone got the same chance. Because like we mentioned, there's so many great moments in White's story where he's like, I really don't want these details to be lost. And there's like a great point where he's trying to get a book version read or written, and he's like, I don't want it to be in the first person because it's not my accomplishments.
Right, yeah.
It needs to be in the third person. I was like, that's a fantastic detail.
Well,
that's like lost.
and he really wanted to like help consult on the FBI story to be
And they were like,
make sure
nah.
you're good. We'll call you.
or the Hoover was like, nah.
They'll call you if they need you, and then the phone never rang.
Yeah.
But it is an interesting, and it's a big swing moment. The last line of dialogue is spoken by Scorsese as the sort of like sum up narrator of the radio show, and he is doing like in some nonfiction movies it'd be like and this happened to this person lived to William Hale lived to age 87, so he's the one who comes out and reads it, and he talks about the last person he mentions is Molly, who died in 1937. Is that in her 50s?
I think she was 51, yeah.
Yeah, she basically complications from diabetes, and said that in the obituary there was no mention of the murders.
Yeah,
And it's just kind of like a very stark thing, and then it hard cuts to a dance. The Osage of modern day gathered in a circle, beating a drum, and it's this slow pulling out, probably drone shot of just an overhead of this giant circle dance, and it's like one of those big swings that like could come off corny, and like, well, you made a choice, but like it's a choice that like genuinely choked me up.
I'm actively have the chills, and just hearing you with your beautiful voice say it back to me, Justin. I feel like I'm there watching it, and I'm on the verge of tears because it is a beautiful statement by him. I think almost in some way being like, look, I understand that my career, I am somewhat complicit in glamorizing the people who've done things like this.
Yeah.
And again, making this American myth that minimizes people who have suffered through great tragedy. It's one of the most beautiful choices he's ever made in a movie, I think.
I agree.
Yeah.
Good job, Marty.
We fucking love you, Marty.
Don't ever die.
Please, again, can we all
not
can we all
ever.
agree on the Guillermo del Toro deal that we'll give Years of Our Life to him?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Let's do it right now.
Oh yeah, I definitely don't need the last few.
Yeah,
Sure.
shave him off so we can get a few more from this guy. He's the fucking best we got. Maybe the best we'll ever get.
Yeah. Well, that seems like a perfect moment to segue into the final ratings. We'll start with you, David. So it'll be, did you like the book? Did you like the movie? Which is better? But we'll do a round of each. So David, did you like the book? And also you can give sort of final sum up thoughts on this.
I love the book. It was great. Again, I don't typically read nonfiction.
Amen, brother.
Hold on now.
Here.
But specifically, like a nonfiction, like historical novels. It's just not my cup of tea.
Yeah, they're boring. I get you, man.
Well, also, I do read books and not listen to audiobooks.
Oh,
so
same.
Got his ass. Got his ass.
First of all, I only listen to audiobooks for this pod.
Okay.
I read on my own time. Thank you very much.
Well, but also, like with this particular book, like it doesn't have Will Patton reading you a section of it, but it does have some excellent photographs. Like it's just peppered with these very when I say informative photographs, it's like photographs that inform the way you feel about the people being described because you can see them.
Yeah.
You can see that face.
Yeah.
You can see Henry Roan and be like, damn, all right.
Yeah, but I could see the faces through Will Patton's narration, you know?
Touche.
Like, I can
Touche.
feel it.
I enjoy a nonfiction audiobook because it's like a podcast where someone tries really hard. Unlike this.
Well, I would say podcasts. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
I think we're trying.
I was
I think
gonna
we're
say
just.
some
Are we
some are
succeeding?
too try-hardy.
Maybe we're just
I don't
not
think we tried
succeeding.
nearly hard enough. I think, maybe we're just really bad at it. That could also be it.
But yeah, we didn't mention how the audiobook does trade voices because it starts with a female reader from Molly's point of view, goes to the great Will Patton, and then ends on Mr. Reporter voice for David Grann. I went down to Oklahoma and I found some documents.
No, that's a little more. That's like a. I'm a talkie guy. This is like a. It's more Waverly. It's more Trimbley.
Yeah, he's from my Brooklyn office. I could never have imagined going down to see the Osage Hills.
Well, wait, is it Grann himself?
No, it's not.
It's not.
Oh,
It's, it's a man embodying him through his voice.
It does feel like this is him talking about. Mostly because
His
it's in like
the first person.
first person perspective, which helps with that. But
So would you guys agree that you also love the book?
I liked it quite a bit.
It was really good. Yeah, I really liked the book, and I've since read. I'd read The Wager before, and so Grann is great. I really like his stuff.
Yeah.
He's good.
I might read more, probably not, but I might, because I really did. I enjoyed how this book was broken up. I thought that was like very
was really
fascinating.
I think
most people wouldn't do it that way. I feel like.
Yeah, I think he wrote this in a way that like propels like fiction, and like his prose style feels very much like
it's like little Russian, nesting dolls of information.
Yeah.
Or I guess in the reverse.
And David Grann, he was
a
literary.
What is a reverse Russian doll? Anyway, sorry, David. Please continue.
I instead of like.
No, let's unpack it, Alan.
Yeah,
literally.
okay.
They get bigger. What are you saying? They're small, but you open them and they get bigger.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm saying. As you open them, they get bigger. It's more nuance.
Do you
and context.
understand the laws of physics?
I understand that you're not a physician. Or a physicist.
Yeah, that's true. Hey, look, I'm just the man who knows when you open a small thing, a big thing doesn't usually come out unless it's like packing peanuts or.
I mean, instead of like more truths being, I guess Russian nesting doll was perfect the first time.
Yeah, you should have stuck with that.
I should have.
like
Said
Then
that.
you said the other thing, and I had to kill
thing
you.
about a peanut.
Well, I was
peanut
gonna
brittle
say
a peanut brittle snake situation.
I was gonna say
only-
a thing earlier that I had a thought in the watching the movie. I was like, this is like the other side of his character in Titanic, of just like marrying into this like crazy affluent family and everyone. But instead of him being hated by all, he's just being ushered by all.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just like a point that doesn't mean anything. But it was a thought.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's around.
Yeah.
It's the same time period. You're not wrong. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I agree. I really liked the book. Found it very readable, and initially I was a little bit confused by the way that the third section really kind of shifts from this sort of like very narrative to sort of like, okay, and this is what it was like investigating this, and what I uncovered is something that doesn't fit into a tidy story, that there's all these loose ends and dead people and other culprits that that aren't William Hale and so on and so on.
Yeah. I'll say about that section where I was just like, God bless these poor people who had to, like, this tragedy is like comes down through their generations, but it made me think, like, if for some horrible accident I have children and then those children have children, and they're interested in what their grandfather was doing, they'll just be so disappointed.
Yeah.
Like, that was just, whereas, like,
you have plenty of time to become a fiasco.
That's true. Actually, you know what? You've given me some hope. But it was just like...
Yeah, there's all kinds of crazy shit you can still do, man.
I just couldn't imagine being like, so we know that on this day my grandfather was doing this, and I was like, oh, but you don't want to know what I'm doing. Anyways, sure. That was my...
Wow. Okay. Next round. Did you like the movie?
I did like the movie. I think it's great for people that have not read the book. But I would actually, instead of recommending people to read the book before watching the movie, I'd probably flip-flop it. If they haven't read the book nor the movie, I'd recommend them to watch the film, then read the book. Because you're getting
kind of
so
getting ahead of us
more.
here, but okay.
Oh, so sorry. I don't know.
It's his first time.
I was going to say, I feel like that's actually a new category, like the order of what to do each.
We've sort of gotten into it.
That's good.
I love it.
Okay,
Yeah. No.
I'll go back to the just
I'm going to
the
double
part.
down then. I think maybe movie first. It'll make it go down easier.
Oh yeah. But
You won't be so enraged watching the movie being like, there's so many details lost, as I'm often thinking.
It's
yeah.
all you think.
It's continuity in me, man. I need it.
think the movie was made with a lot of respect, especially with the Osage community being brought into this film. And again, like that last scene too, the slow pan up was just so beautiful. One of my favorite Scorsese endings, and just probably endings in movies in general that I've seen in a long time. So I think there's a lot of great things from this movie that you can take out. So yeah, I really enjoyed it.
I also really enjoyed it. Parts of it still rub me not the wrong way, but in a weird way. I need to.
Yeah.
Like we said after watching, I was like, I need to watch that again before
Well, that
I
was
can
the
really
thing.
understand how I feel
You seem
about it.
physically a little bit like tied up. Like when me, Tyler, and you stood outside the movie theater, like you physically were a little bit like, because we're not going to get heavy into it because we got the podcast, but we're talking a bit. You kind of were like, yeah, and you were kind of like tight and like.
Well, because my immediate reaction was like, did I like that? I didn't know if I liked that or not.
Yeah.
And I didn't really want to go into it because I didn't know how to like think about it. But in the process of talking about it today, ultimately my theory is that if you like more than you hate, then you love that movie, and that's how I come across now. But it's just aspects of the movie. I don't know. I still don't really know how to get into it. Like kind of one of the aspects of America, specifically white men being greedy. It's like, yeah, man, I already know that. I guess I kind of wanted it to go a Scorsese level deeper in my mind, and leave me with some new like truth. But I came out of that being like, yeah.
Checks out.
Checks out, man. Fuck them all, I guess. But so yeah, I was like a little angry that it didn't reveal some greater level of truth, and maybe Scorsese couldn't give that to me because there is no greater level of truth than, God damn, most people suck, huh? I don't know, but like I was really conflicted when I came out of it.
Yeah.
But in thinking about it and thinking about all the scenes I like, I mean, I love a good performance over just about anything. So even though it's maybe I was mad that I liked his portrayal of Ernest so much.
Yeah.
He's likable on purpose to fuck with you, to make you feel weird about liking him. That's done on purpose. But I'm kind of bummed, and I'm like, yeah. Do I like his performance more than I like what we miss from his embellishment of the story? Like it's hard for me to like figure that in my mind. But ultimately, I really like the movie.
Very fair.
Quite a bit. I'll definitely, any movie that I want to see again, I also feel like is a good movie. Even if it's something that I thought was bad, it's something compels me to watch it again, then that's an interesting movie at the very least.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the movie. I like the movie a lot. I was, in terms of book movie order, I would almost say like read the book, I mean, and this is, if you're going to see the movie tomorrow, you can't do this. But I was going to say, I would have almost liked if I'd read the movie or the book 3 months ago, forgotten a bunch of stuff, and then watched it.
Yeah.
Just because, like, it's a dense book and it's a dense movie, and like having some pre-knowledge of, again, names, places, things, I think is actually really helpful.
Yeah.
But having too much knowledge, again,
and we all crammed it in.
We all did it right up until basically the movie started almost. And it's that thing where you go, if it's too fresh, then you're just noticing differences between source material and movie, which is really not the right way to watch anything. Even because you can't help yourself. You're just like, well, it's different, and why is it different? But it's like,
well, I usually feel that pretty strongly. I didn't really care in this movie. It's just the pivot of the movie around Ernest
and I think like it's a strong adaptation, and you just kind of have to accept they're going to make choices, Alan.
No, I know. So the movie can happen. Like, I understand.
But
I'm one that believes that, like, who cares what really happened? Make the story you want to say. And this particular one, it's like, well, maybe adhere a little bit more to the truth, because this is a pretty important moment in history.
It's true. I mean, they fill in some details and make choices, and I'm not saying you can't feel conflicted about the central relationship.
It's just when I can't understand the choice that confounds me.
Well, and so I was going to say the only thing in terms of like it trying to reach a deeper truth, and I don't know if this is something that I found, and then I've read some reviews and I've listened to some things, so I feel like if I were to see the movie again, I would really try to clock this, is that I think when he's made movies like this in the past, not that he's endorsing these people like the Henry Hills of the world or the Sam Rothsteins, but there is a glorification, and I think there is almost a trust with the audience to be like, these guys are fun, but ultimately we all agree they're dirtbags. And I think in this movie he is going for, these guys are monsters, and they can be good. And the formula is a little changed, where it's like we are just
he's much more careful now as he's gotten older, especially with people for years being like, you have glorified gangsters,
right? Which is like I think it's got to wear on you at some point. It's got to wear on you, and you're like, how more clearly can I make it that I don't actually like these guys, even though they're funny or charming or interesting to be around.
Right.
And in this case, I think it was certainly a choice to be like, we know from the beginning that these are bad guys and they're doing terrible things. But ultimately, maybe on some level, Ernest loves his wife. William Hale is willing to delude himself into the idea that he's doing
ultimately on some level, there's
for
still
the greater good. Yeah,
partly human,
right? And
they make jokes, they make mistakes,
and like
because what they think they're doing is not wrong. So of course they're living their lives.
And then essentially, like as far back as you go in America, it's all been run by gangsters who are willing to kill and do anything to get money and knock people out of the way. And
gangs in New York, man.
So, anyways, it's a really good movie. I enjoyed it greatly.
I'm still processing the movie, but I had a similar feeling, which was, I need to watch this movie again, but maybe in a month, when some of the details from the book have faded. Because, it's just a lot of like, oh, that's a little different. I would have imagined it portrayed in another way. Okay. But there's like so many things that are brought to life in a way that feels so much more vivid than the account in the I was going to say novel, but like in the book, that I wouldn't trade for that. I'm like it's so well realized, and I'm sure that also has to do with like Scorsese actually going to the Osage and talking with them and working with them, and they brought their reality to it.
And also him having $200 million to
$200 million to reenact that,
sets and trains and production design and clothing, and it becomes an absolutely gorgeous to look at world.
So official order is maybe movie then book, or read the book and then watch the movie 4 months in the future.
But there definitely has to be some gap time, because...
Read the book and hit your head real hard. Then go watch the movie. Be perfect.
Or audiobook in one ear while watching the movie. You can get most of the book during the movie.
Because honestly, there are some things I'm reflecting on that were scenes that were between Ernest and his uncle, that were pure speculation, purely for character development, that did get me a little antsy watching it, because I'm like, well, I know this didn't really happen.
Right.
But I feel like if I'm just watching it as a movie and just like taking in the moviness of this movie, like that stuff probably won't irk me. But I agree kind of also with what Alan was saying, which is just like the fact that it's not a settled thing for me just proves that I think that it's a richer experience than a lot of movies.
Yeah.
So I'm hedging a little bit because I don't even really know if I'm going to go book is better, movie is better. But I think they're both pretty rich and exciting experiences. So we'll start with you, David. What do you think, which is better, the book, the movie?
I mean, TBD. You know, it's I
You
need
gotta
some
decide,
time.
bro. Right now, look at me, decide.
Yeah, viewers or listeners, Alan has a knife against my neck right now, so
It's not a knife. It's just a suggestion, really.
yeah.
I've always had this in my hand.
Well, honestly, I would go with the book. Not because that's the cliche answer, but just because I feel like I got a lot more out of it. But I will say, like, I would implore people to watch the movie. I think I also like a question that I asked myself was this movie needed to be made? And I'm like, oh, absolutely. I really do. I think, well, people in LA, they don't read, so you know, there's another form that could inform them of this, and I'm glad that it exists. So, but yeah, I would stick with the book.
Yeah.
But doesn't change the fact that the movie did what it needed to do. So, yeah, that's my stance on that.
I would say they're both kind of on equal standing within me. The woman in me, Britney Spears. Hashtag. Sorry. But if I had to choose, I would say probably book. But they're very, very close. Until I see the movie again, I won't know for sure. But I'd say book.
I will say it is. It is very tight. I would also probably. I'm gonna go with the movie. I really genuinely think the movie was such a great experience. It's so thematically rich. It's so visually compelling. It is a Martin Scorsese movie.
Yeah,
you're gonna enjoy it. And I think over time, I will. It's like if it were today, I'd be like 51% movie, 49% book. Over time, it will, I think, only grow. How much more I prefer the movie. Not that I don't like the book, but today I'm gonna say the movie 51% to 49%.
Yeah.
Nice. And I think just to get that nice split, I'm going to also say movie. So it's 2 book, 2 movie. It's a tie.
But we could all flip-flop
unsettled
at some point.
I know. I know. But right now, it's a tie. 2 book, 2 movie. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks for sticking in. This was a longer episode than normal for us. Right now, we've got in the hopper, we're going to do Priscilla, the Sofia Coppola movie, and Priscilla's memoir that film is based on, Elvis and Me. So if you want to read or watch a movie to catch up with us, that's what we're doing next. And we're going to have some more stuff that we're probably going to bank. So
Maybe
I don't
some
know
short stories. Tell me right now if you want to hear us talk about Johnny Mnemonic. I would love to. Just write in. Tell us if you want to hear us talk about Johnny Mnemonic.
Thank you again so much for listening. Thank you, David, for joining us in this conversation.
Pleasure to be here.
And don't take insulin from your husband.
Yeah. And make sure you love that money.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Skylight Books podcast series. We hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to check out the book featured in this episode, or others, please visit skylightbooks.com. If you're in the Los Angeles area, stop by for one of our live in-person author events. You can find a calendar on our website. If you like this podcast, leave us a review. It really helps us out. Our music is by Duck the Piano Wire. Till next time.